The brain of a psychopath, something likely all of us have wondered at some point. How do they work? I'm sure most of us have heard this term and casually thrown it around to label people. So let's first define what psychopathy actually is. Psychopathy is characterized by traits or symptoms of emotional detachment, disinhibition, impulsive behavior, general callousness, and lack of insight or empathy for the impact their behavior may have on others. It is not an official diagnosis in the DSM-5, but it is a subgroup of antisocial personality disorder. Here is a diagram to show behaviors and disorders and where psychopathy falls under antisocial personality disorder and where they overlap between the four. This generally shows how psychopathy mixes between them. Now we can look at the brain-based theory for psychopaths and what parts of the brain control these behaviors. In other words, what is lacking in these regions. There is reduced activation in the amygdala and ventromedial prefrontal cortex. The amygdala regulates fear and anxiety, and the ventromedial prefrontal cortex is responsible for empathy and guilt, which should be part of the lower region in the pink and yellow section of this image. Having a deficit in effective empathy based on research plays an important role in psychopathic personality. Pain is important to motivate behaviors like sympathy because it allows a person to care for another in pain and distress. They don't experience emotional pain the same for themselves or others, likely due to reduction in exposure to these situations and feelings. There has also been a report of reduction in gray matter volume in the prefrontal cortex, amygdala volume loss, decreased volume loss in the posterior hippocampus, as well as structural asymmetry in the hippocampus, and finally increased white matter in psychopaths' brains. The discovery shows that psychopathy may be associated with abnormalities in the brain, particularly in areas that are involved in emotion and learning. To further investigate psychopathic brains, they use PET scans. And what have they found in these brain scans? Well, these are some examples comparing the average person's brain to that of a psychopath in both frontal and lateral view. In other words, the front and from the side. You can see in the lower regions, psychopath's brain isn't as vibrantly lit up in neon green or yellow and is mostly dark blue surrounding various specks of light blue. In the prefrontal cortex, or the front, the psychopath's brain has less red and orange areas. The prefrontal cortex encompasses the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, which we talked about previously, which is in the lower region. Remember, this is where empathy and guilt is regulated. As a whole, the prefrontal cortex controls reasoning, problem-solving, comprehension, impulse control, creativity, and perseverance. Impulse control and empathy are among the top determining traits for psychopathy, which is shown in the red region, or lack thereof in the psychopath's case. But how does this contribute to why they may go and commit crimes? First of all, let's get one thing straight. Not all psychopaths are serial killers, and not all serial killers are psychopaths. Measured by Hare's PCLR test, the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, 20 to 25% of the prison population in the United States alone would be considered as psychopaths. Criminal psychopaths need to be distinguished from non-criminal psychopaths who share traits of psychopathy, because having traits does not equal criminal behaviors. Many go on to live a crime-free life, but due to impulse control, they are more likely to impulse buy or be very quick to make rash decisions, which then in those who do end up committing crimes, impulsivity can play a factor in it, including the lack of remorse or empathy. Even looking at criminals as a whole, including non-psychopaths, there is no one thing that led them to commit a crime. It could be genetic or biological factors like the brain or DNA, or it can be psychological, among many other things. People can have the same lessons or experiences, or have the same genetic components, but will not engage in antisocial or psychotic behaviors. We all have the potential to become killers, but only a small portion of us go on to do so. This is due to us having an inhibitory system that stop us from fulfilling dark fantasies and intrusive thoughts such as murder. In the psychopathic personality, there are deficits in emotion, mostly in anxiety and fear. Psychopaths lack fear responses when faced with stressful or scary situations, and therefore do not form punishment-related associations to those actions. In relation to crime, they may commit an illegal act without these emotions, to then not associate it to the potential punishment of going to jail or prison. With all the research we have on the human brain, it barely scratches the surface of our understanding. There is always more research to be done, and more information could be more widely available to the public. True crime documentaries won't give you a full encyclopedia of the psychopath, nor the blueprints of their mind. Despite there being no one definitive answer, we have some insight now to how and why a psychopath's brain works and why it may contribute to a life of crime.